You've got strong genes. This is something we all have heard before, whether somebody said it to you or you've said it to somebody else. People often say this saying when those in their family line look pretty similar to those that are also in their family, or if their own children just happen to look like identical to their parents. When people say this to me, what they are really saying is that my genes just happen to be stronger than that of their father's. Truth is, genes cannot be stronger than one or another, but can either be dominant or recessive. In this speech, I'm going to be highlighting a couple important aspects, on such as what are some dominant and recessive traits. I'm going to take a look at the Punnett square, and using the Punnett square to show how my daughter yielded blue eyes from two brown-eyed parents, as well as somebody who we can give thanks to for the way that we have genetics and how it is cultivated today. As stated by Christopher MD on the genome.gov website, dominant refers to a relationship between two versions of a gene. So each offspring inherits two alleles from a parent. If those alleles just happen to be different from one another, then the dominant allele is going to be expressed, or the gene or the allele that happens to be masked is going to technically be the recessive gene. In their book Campbell Connections, Concept and Connections in 2018, Taylor, Simon, Dickey, Hogan, and Reese stated that a trait being dominant does not necessarily mean that it's normal or more common in a recessive trait. Rather, that a recessive trait can actually be more common or popular in a given population. In a 2021 article on the Punnett square, dominant and recessive traits are seen in an article in 2021, such as the cleft chin, widow's peak, dimples, brown and black hair, freckles, brown eyes, and a free earlobe. Recessive traits are no cleft chin, no widow's peak, no dimples, blonde hair, no freckles, gray, blue eyes, and attached earlobes. Given this information on what are dominant traits and what are recessive traits, we can take a look at the Punnett square and see how my daughter yielded blue eyes with two brown-eyed parents. Because my daughter yielded blue eyes with two brown-eyed parents, we know that her father, and I had to have carried two recessive blue-eyed traits within our genes. So here, brown eyes are going to be represented by the capital B brown-eyed allele. So capital BB would equal brown. Capital B lowercase b would also be brown because this lowercase b is going to be the recessive allele that would be masked. And then for a recessive allele to be expressed or shown within somebody, they would have to have inherited two recessive genes. So the lowercase would equal the blue-eyed gene. So knowing that we have our dominant gene of brown eyes were being expressed, and knowing that we had two recessive genes also in order to have a blue-eyed offspring, we know that our genes would be expressed with a capital B and lowercase b, as shown here and here. So here would be me, and then here would be her father. So in probability, we can see that there's a 75% chance of our children having brown eyes and a 25% chance of our children having blue eyes. Often it is assumed two brown-eyed parents can't make a blue-eyed children, when actually that's false, because just the dominant traits happen to be expressed within somebody. So they could be carriers often of many of these different recessive traits. We can thank Mendel for what we know about genetics today. He did research in Diaz's 2013 film on how Mendel's pea plants helped us understand genetics. She described how Mendel went into and created a purebred yellow pea plant and a purebred green pea plant. When Mendel created the purebred green pea plant and the purebred yellow pea plant and then crossed them together, he yielded only yellow pea plants. Because of him yielding only the yellow pea plants, we were able to conclude that the yellow pea plants are dominant. After he did other different crossing, he was then able to yield the green pea plants knowing that they are recessive. This information that Mendel studied is useful in genetics today because now we can look at other factors that Mendel also looked into. He also studied things like round versus wrinkled, or short and tall pea plants. Just like that in human, we have very different characteristics and traits that we are inherited. Now that we know a little bit on DNA and dominant and recessive genes, we can know how, by using a Punnett square, we can know just how somebody can inherit certain traits, even though they are dominant or recessive. So when somebody says to you that you have strong genes, now what you know what they're really saying is that some of your genes just happen to be dominant over recessive. But in my case, my strong genes just happen to be recessive.